Welcome to NFL Outdated. This is the Arts and Entertainment series. This episode, we are joined by veteran actor Anthony L. Fernandez. His new movie is out now on Netflix, Home Team with Kevin James. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Well, we connected on Twitter, and Twitter can be uh, a negative place, but I like that the positive aspect of it, where we can connect and really learn about a lot of different things, and so that's why I'm excited to talk with you.
Yeah, I'm a follower of Twitter, and I love getting on there. It's such an amazing hub for community and to interact and express and share. And I love it because it's such a great platform.
Absolutely. And so you've got a lot of great things kind of going on in your career right now. Let's just kind of, back it up and start like, how did you get into acting?
For me, I've always been creative, but it was a big change as far as who I was and who I am. I always love redemption stories, and that's kind of what it was for me. I kind of messed around in the streets a lot. I was, bald head, tattoos all over, selling drugs, living kind of fast, and I ended up 99. I actually started bouncing. It weaned me off the streets, and I did that for years until around 2006. Then, bam, brand new family. I was totally like sex, drugs, rock and roll, all that type
Mhm.
of hard living. But it changed me. That year, the club I was at actually had closed. And so, taking care of the family, I just learned a whole lot of new things. And one of them was what it takes to really support a family. So, I was kind of like waving the white flag, and I said, let me go back to school, and I'll just go for a degree and see where it takes me. And I ended up choosing acting as an elective, and I studied literally for like 3, 4 years before I even decided to go out for acting as a career. But around 2009, I said, you know what? I love this. I think I can make it work. Hollywood is right next door, so let me see if I can make a career out of it.
Absolutely. And I love that story. It's got to be just an interesting business to kind of get into. I mean, some of your first auditions, how did that go? And I mean, was it hard to kind of, find that niche for yourself?
Yeah, it's easy to say that you're going to do it, but when you try to figure out how you go about it, I live on the border of LA, Anaheim, so I was thinking
Mhm.
like, how do I make 60-mile round trips for every audition, whether I get it or not? But it's that first step and the commitment and just what I was instilled with growing up, that when you decide something, you give it your all, and we see where it goes. So it was figuring out a lot of things. It was after I had graduated from the acting school I was at. Just luckily, a buddy of mine had another acting school up in North Hollywood that I was able to get access to, and I started doing my research. I joined Central Casting and did all kinds of background work, and I was just blessed. It was one step after the other, and doors would open. The ones that weren't supposed to be closed. And I learned as I went. There were some times where you make mistakes, but I'm really good at getting back up and dusting myself off. So it was just a combination of the hard work and then figuring out what I needed to do if I wanted to take it to a professional level to attain the SAG, to start getting on the major series and films. And, looking back, I can say that it was easy, but it wasn't. It was a lot of years of hard work.
Yeah, and so you talked about kind of that background work. So, I mean, what is that like? I mean, were you kind of just studying some characters or how to approach it, or what is that like?
Well, coming in the door, it was a regrowth and a rebirth of who I was. So, of course, I was getting a lot of the background roles as the thugs, as the gang members. And,
Hmm.
there was one of the biggest ones that I got on, which hired me multiple days, brought me back for auditions, was a show that was on Fox called Gang Related. And they didn't go
Hmm.
past the first season, but it was it was a great learning experience for me because I got to see firsthand, like for central casting especially, you get put on big union projects, and so you get a if you're really interested, you get a study on how they act, the scenes, how they film things, get to learn the downtime, the side of it that isn't as glamorous. And there's always an abundance of people on set that are willing to answer questions and kind of show you what's going on. And that was a huge Brothers the ones that filmed that. So these were automatically thrown into people that you might have grown up watching, or you see their work before. And I got this little scene. Even if you look in the end of a movie called Sabotage with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I remember we
Hmm.
went to Golden Time, and they had used me just because I was walking around playing pool and smoking the cigarettes, and they used it for that scene. And so when you're starting out, every little thing that you do to get in there and that makes it in, you kind of take pride in, and you use that to elevate yourself to the next step. But I loved it. I did it for years, and even there were some times when I was auditioning that I would still be taking background roles, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's called making your bones,
Hmm.
and I had no problem with that.
Were there's some actors that you studied then?
I think as a kid, I grew up, there were some classics that I just loved and some actors. I always loved Johnny Depp. One of my favorites was Lou Diamond Phillips,
Mm-hmm.
from La Bamba to Young Guns.
Mm-hmm.
Young Guns was one of my favorites. It was just
Mine too.
amazing.
Yep.
I love period pieces and
Hmm.
westerns. And yeah, I think there was a part of me that was always artistic and always kind of studied that. I was tapped into how we express emotions, even when we're trying to mask those emotions. And so I have to give it up to there were a lot of great actors. I mean, even people like Anthony Hopkins,
Mm.
De Niro, the Pacinos. I was always very interested in character actors, and I'm a product of the '80s and the '90s as well. So I would love seeing on the other end the Chevy Chases and the Bill
Mm.
Murrays and Dan Aykroyds that would just give these amazing performances, and it didn't matter whether they went dramatic or comedic. They were just so powerful.
Absolutely, and that kind of leads it to my other question. What is your approach to act as an actor for comedic roles as opposed to dramatic roles?
I tell you what, I always saw myself as a dramatic actor, even though I loved it. I love comedy. I don't know. I didn't really grow up like using the funny bone, so to speak, and it was amazing because my first break was in around 2000. I believe we filmed it 2013, 2014. Was The Wedding Ringer
Hmm.
with Kevin Hart, Josh Gad,
Hmm.
and so I'm automatically thrown into powerhouse comedians, and I got this beautiful scene with Ignacio Cerreccio and Josh and Kevin. And I didn't understand it at first. Director was Jeremy Gerlich. I knew that I earned the role, but I didn't understand what was funny about it at first.
Mm.
And now looking back, I realize it's not that different in preparation. You can try and be funny, and most times that falls flat.
Hmm.
But the main thing is to remain true to the character. If you play that character the exact way that they would feel about themselves, and most people don't see themselves or want to see themselves as the laughing point. So you stay focused. When the character is serious, the comedy will come out of what the writers do and the direction that you get, and you start to understand that unfolds. So regardless of whether I'm playing something dramatic or something comedic, I try and find that truth, their wants, their needs, whatever they think about themselves, and I try and play true to that.
With when you're preparing for a role, do you try it out on your family? I mean, or do they kind of like try to stay away from that, or?
Oh yes, I'm sure that I annoy them sometimes because I'll come into a room and I'll still be in that character, and it's a lot about trying out what works, what doesn't work. I know a lot of people say what they feel, but it's always going to be you. You're never really going to become another character. So it's those aspects of your character, your mannerisms that you portray and put into it. But you never know unless you have worked a character and different scenes to the point where you're discovering new things. And I've noticed that some of the times where I didn't push as hard or I didn't dive in as deep, you can even film and then after the fact, like, oh, I didn't even understand that about that character. Oh, this would have been so great. And so learning from that, I have just made sure that I never leave any stone unturned.
I was just going to ask that if you are able to kind of look back on your work and kind of see that and just kind of then learn from that. And obviously, you do.
Oh yes, it's very important to. One of the things that I say is even sometimes, when you're on set, you're a new actor or it's someone else's series, let's say, and you're just there shooting for a day. we as actors can kind of get caught up in the fact of not feeling that you have as much freedom. And I always say the worst thing they can do is say they didn't like that take, but you'll
Mhm.
regret it if you don't try it, if you don't go there, if you don't get comfortable in what you're doing, because you may strike gold.
Yeah, and I guess, that leads to another question as well, like, is there a typical amount of times that you shoot scenes or how many takes or, is it more, on TV shows as opposed to movies or how does that work?
Well, there's a saying that we have in the business is hurry up and wait.
Mhm.
But when it's time to go, it's time to go, and I think that all just depends on how much time you have, how prepared you are. There are some times where I've seen, bless them, some actors that you can tell weren't as prepared, and they've had to go over the same thing over and over. Whereas there's others, and I try and do that myself, where you are so prepared when you show up that sometimes we nail it in a take. But even with nailing something in a take, you still, with the angles, people don't understand with the editing and everything it takes for
Mhm.
just one scene.
Mhm.
You have the close-ups, you have the wides, you have your close-up, you have the other person. So a lot of angles, a lot of camera setups, and a lot of times, we're working with productions where even though they have everything planned out, they don't know until the day when they get on set and see how everything is, what can be done, what can't be, and then new things come up, new suggestions. Oh, how about we do this? So, yeah, I love it. I wish I could say we get in there and knock it out in one take, but it's several different takes, and I think that gold happens when you've gone through it a few times, and then you really hit a rhythm and a pace, and yeah. So it could be multiple. It just depends on the project, the scene.
Well, that's why I wonder too, with some of these, comedic actors that like to kind of, do things off the cuff. I mean, is it more takes, because of that sometimes as well, or?
Yeah, sometimes there's time crunches, but a
Mhm.
lot of times that's just depending on what the project is and the scene. There is time allowed for that. I mean, there was so much improv that I've seen used on certain things, and sometimes it makes it in, sometimes it hits the cutting room floor. But the exploration of that is always welcome. I always love that, but sometimes you don't have that. Sometimes you're on the deadline. They have to get to a next scene, so it's pretty much. And it depends on who the director is. Sometimes they want it word for word, and then other times they want to give you a freedom just so you get the idea of it and you can ad lib. But I think it's great. I always say to actors that I come across that ask me questions, I say, be prepared. You be
Mhm.
prepared for the unexpected. Be prepared to go off book, and be prepared to stay in character no matter what happens until you hear cut.
So yeah, talk about what that means. Obviously, be prepared to go off book, just to kind of basically you're staying in your character, but you're responding to what they're saying.
Yes, because if you study long enough, you realize that it's just the human condition and
Mm.
emotion.
Mhm.
To You're always thinking something different than what you're saying, so it's
Mhm.
not too different than acting. We all kind of do our acting in our daily lives, but
Yeah.
there is a specific script. There is a point A that needs to get to the point B, and you need to know where that goes. But in between, as long as you're prepared to go off, any amount of dialogue that could help service it or make the characters more realistic. It kind of can take it off a certain course, but as long as it comes back to where it needs to be, that's pretty much the off book part. And sometimes some of the best performances you hear were made that way.
Absolutely. And so is that your process then, like when you're kind of when you get a role that basically you have point A and needs to get to point B, is that kind of, your process?
Yes, and you try and use it where you can. When you're up and coming, sometimes it's like you'll have just a one line, and you have a co-star where your only job is to get in there and say that line and pass it to the guest star,
Mhm.
and it's them to pass it to the main character. But the more freedom, the bigger roles that you have, the more comfortable in your own skin you become.
Mm.
The more you take those chances, and that's where magic happens, because I've done it before. I'm one of those guys that is a risk taker. Though I have been blessed, I do make sure that I'm prepared, and I've always wanted to prove that when I come to the table that I'm ready to play.
Absolutely. And kind of with that, then, do you have like kind of maybe one of your favorite scene partner experiences? With that kind of, obviously you've acted with some big actors, in TV, movie. Are there some of that really stick out?
Yeah, I do have a few. The first one was definitely the one with Kevin and Josh and Ignacio in The Wedding Ringer because
Hmm.
we had so much freedom. There was so much goofy stuff happening. It was the levity. It was just great. The feel, the energy in the room. So we tried a few things that even people didn't see, and it worked. And that was just fun because it was comedy.
Hmm.
Also on NCIS, I really loved it because I got to work with Mark Harmon. I
Hmm.
watched him growing up. I remember summer school. He's an
Hmm.
amazing actor, and we had a very heavy dialogue. And we were going back and forth, and we did that scene over and over again just to make sure that we got all the angles. But that for me was intense.
Hmm.
The blood was flowing, and also on that episode, I got to work with Wilmer Valderrama,
Hmm.
probably more than Mark because we were kind of buddied up on that one,
Hmm.
and just how we would push each other. And when you get locked in on the eyes, that also happened on Deputy. Stefan Dorff, he was amazing to work with, and he has an intensity all on his own. And then I say, of course, Home Team. It
Hmm.
was such a surreal experience to look across, and me and Kevin had those moments where I had to be locked in his eyes. I had to remember everything that I had worked on,
Hmm.
and give it to somebody who I knew could give it back. And it's a pleasure to do that.
Absolutely. In kind of, you talked about NCIS, and it looks like you've had some recurring roles, some guest roles. How does that process work? I mean, do they kind of contact you, to make sure it fits in your schedule, or how does that work to have those recurring roles?
I believe sometimes production has a plan.
Uh-huh.
It will be set up to where they already have sort of this character set up, and if you audition, you get it, then they already have knowledge of bringing you back.
Oh.
Other times, people's performances will be so good, or the character will relate to the public and the viewing audience in such a good manner that they'll write more in for that character.
Hmm.
And then other times, you may just perform your way into a series cast member if the feedback is great. And so there's a number of ways to do it. Recurring is always what you aspire to do, aside from getting up to that main series cast member. And it's just a joy. I always say, like, enjoy the experience of getting there because you know I've been blessed with some of those auditions, and even the ones that you don't get, as long as you gave a performance that you were happy with, then you can kind of leave it on the table. And just because you didn't get chosen for that particular one, don't think the casting, production, anyone involved that saw it didn't see it, and you'll be called back for another recurring.
So yeah, there really is a lot, that goes into kind of auditioning and everything. I mean, you could feel like, you give, a great performance in the audition, but maybe someone else just kind of, fits what they're needing more.
Sure, it's about never taking it personal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to have to learn to take rejection. We're always out interviewing. It's like sometimes in other fields, you'll interview, you'll have the job for a long time, and then you retire. But
Mm-hmm.
with us, we're constantly auditioning, so you have to have thick skin. You have to let it roll off your back. And I've had my fair share. I've had really, really great performances in auditions where I was like, well, if they didn't give me the job, I'm happy with it because I presented what I made. And then there are other times where you walk out feeling not so good. Maybe it was the nervous energy caught you. Auditioning is never one of my favorite processes, but it's a necessary evil in the business, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you have one bad audition, that doesn't that doesn't mean that you'll never be called back. And you're right. It could be a number of factors after you've given them a good audition where someone just was a certain fit. But if you gave them the performance that you wanted to, and then you leave it, you could be called back.
Absolutely. Well, with being in a home team, what was the experience working on an Adam Sandler movie?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Growing up watching Happy Madison movies,
Hmm.
even before the Happy Madison movies, I watched them on Saturday Night Live, and they're
Hmm.
amazing comedic minds.
Hmm.
So it was just a pleasure, and you know, we all know with the Happy Madison movies, when you're included, it's a family. It becomes so much more than just being on a regular project. And so I felt amazing. You know, it was surreal at moments because I had done so much work, and I had gained so much experience that, you know, you get the job. I think I had like two or three auditions for it as it came around, and then the plans are made, especially when you're traveling out of state from where you live to go and work on the film. And you know, it's just those moments kind of let you know that you're there, and to see those people and know that you're going to work with them. Even that feeling pales in comparison to when you actually step on set. You know, you see all of these people, the camera's on you, you're there because you earned that spot.
Hmm.
And just knowing that whatever they have for you is special. I felt blessed. I'm very grateful. And in the entertainment industry, it's constantly telling yourself, you know, to get the job. I'm better than the other guys in the room, but yet remind yourself you're no better than anybody. So just blessed. You know, I was very proud to share it with my family and friends. And when it came out, I was just, you know, blown away by everything.
Absolutely. And you know, obviously you worked with adults. You talked, you know, Mark Harmon and everything. What is the difference between working with kids on set?
Well, I've heard you know, don't work with kids and animals before, but you know, I was fortunate enough to play a dad in another series that I was in on Netflix called It's Bruno,
Okay.
and
Yes.
yeah, it was me and Eddie Hernandez, and he plays my son, and it's a great short form series. If you have time, check it out. It's on
Hmm.
Netflix also. And you know, I actually love being a dad. I am a dad in real life,
Hmm.
and you know, I always think that there's an innocence of what kids bring to the table, and an honesty and an authenticity that they bring genuinely. And I loved working on It's Bruno. That was the first time, but me and Eddie got along great. And you know, my two daughters are 15 and 10, so I was familiar with that age going into home team.
Hmm.
And I also have a son. He's 23 now, and
Hmm.
you know, he played football his whole life. So I know how that is to be a football dad. And so working with the kids, there's really, you know, they kind of kept it separate because just, you know, of COVID and everything that we're going through, and you know, every protocol that you have to follow. But watching those kids, you know, the cameras, they didn't even have to act. Like even when they weren't filming, those kids, they were like push-up contests. Yeah, check
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
out. And I love it because they brought an energy onto the set that I think transferred over to the cast, the crew. Everyone loved interacting with them, and then when you see what they deliver as far as the professionalism, the talent, I was blown away. And I recommend. I say, you know, don't have those walls. You know, break down
Right.
those walls, especially if you're an actor. Yeah, I loved it.
Well, yeah. Speaking about being blown away, that the puking scene just that
Oh,
had me. So,
oh, that was a funny scene. That was a
yeah.
fun day too. It's funny because all the days that we were working, fighting against rain, sometimes it would pass over and then we could film. That was actually a bright, beautiful day. And then they brought in the sprinklers and made the rain. And then when the puking started, it was hilarious to watch. We were on the sidelines watching, and I was just, oh, this is going to be so gross.
Well, that's interesting. So, like, so when it was actually raining, you weren't filming then.
Yeah, yeah. No, they brought in the sprinklers. It's so funny how the movie magic works because
Hmm.
you would think that you could take advantage of the weather and stuff like that, but you really can't. It has to be planned. Everything has to be in unison. And there are even sometimes I think during that day where a real rain passed and we had to kind of wait it out so that we can go back and turn the sprinklers on and fake the rain again.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, Sean Payton was there. Did you get a chance to meet him then?
Well, unfortunately, we didn't. I think that was also partly due to just the restrictions that we all had to follow. There was a lot of protocol on set, And then I do believe they wanted to keep kind of what was under wraps a secret because there were some, like the rumor mills were flying around, and I knew that he was there, but it was just the scheduling allowed for us to film, and then we had to go because they had other things to film. There were so many different compartments to that, but I knew he was around, and I knew that they were planning something special for him, and I didn't really know. Chris Titoni finally kind of told me like what was up towards the end of it, and I thought it was great. I was pleasantly surprised when I saw his performance in the movie.
The cameo, yeah, that was a great part. Yep.
It was great. It was great.
So, you talked about kind of being on site with your acting roles. Is there, any kind of weird places or the most random places that you've had to film?
I mean, from indie to major productions, it's you never know where you'll actually be or
Mm,
what you'll be asked to do. But some of the most interesting, Hawaii Five O was amazing. I had never been to
mhm.
Hawaii, and then I find myself doing a night shoot in the same jungle that they filmed Jurassic Park in.
Wow.
I loved that performance. I was really tuned in, and I worked really hard on that character. But you just look around. I mean, and I've been flown so many places just because of that. I'm so proud to say that I never really had a legitimate career that I was proud of, that I could say this is my profession. I
Mhm,
think the first few years I was acting, I was kind of, oh, you kind of do some acting,
mhm.
but then it just the light switched, and I'm like, no, I'm an actor, and I found myself in Hawaii, Alabama, New York, of course, New Orleans, filming
Mhm.
Home Team, and so I'm just blessed. Like even Mexico, filming on Coyote. We were in
Mm,
New Mexico filming on Deputy, and
mhm.
places that I would never have gotten to in my life. I've been able to look around and like, man, this is just so great and amazing that I was blessed to partake in. And be flown out, and they think enough of me and my career, my skills, and my resume to put me up like this. So yeah.
Absolutely. And do you have any, bucket list like shows or projects that you would like to participate in or?
Yeah, it ranges the gambit. I love the show that's on Netflix right now, Ozark.
Yep.
There are some, yeah, I love the Mayans. There are some that I've actually kind of gone out for and just haven't found that role for me yet. But
Yeah.
I also love the comedies like Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's one
Mhm.
of my favorites. I think there's a real intelligence to the comedy. But I think more importantly, well, maybe Tarantino's and Star Wars to complete
Mm.
the kid inside me.
Yeah.
But no specific ones. I just want to work with great people, great talents that want to work with me. I would love to be. I heard there's the rumor mill flying about Young Guns 3 with
Oh,
John
wow.
Lithgow, and I've always loved that one. That's like
Mhm.
classic. So if there was ever an
Mhm.
opportunity for me to get on something like that, then boy, I would be happy.
Absolutely. And how does that process work then? I mean, is you have an agent that's kind of, keeping an eye out for projects? Or are you kind of, scouting things for yourself, or how does that work?
Yes, we all work together. I have a great management staff at Entertainment Lab. I have a great agent, Kevin Turner at Daniel Hoff Agency, and we collaborate and work together. And they're always out there looking for something fresh and something big. And then, when I see something or there's a passion project or something I want to get in on, all it is a phone call or an email away, and they're on it. And then sometimes I say, in the meantime, it's your job as the actor to make yourself marketable enough and
Mm.
to keep striving to the point where other people take notice,
Mhm.
and you start getting those offers, and they say we'd like, they see your previous work, and they say we'd like your client to read for this. And I would love to get to the point of offer only, but I still have a bit more work to do in that regard, but something to strive for. I love the depths, the McConaughey's, um, the Denzels,
Mhm.
Blue Diamond Phillips. So there's always inspiration, no matter what level you hit. You should always be inspired by someone else that has walked in your path previously.
Absolutely. And so you obviously you've worked with, movies and TV. Is there a difference than kind of on set with the indie projects, or what is that like?
There is, I've gotten less and less the more you take on, the more you're union, you can't step away from those. But
Hmm.
when you do have a chance to work on an indie, I've noticed, especially if you have a name, they bring you in for a certain reason. uh, there's a lot more freedom, I guess you can say,
Mm,
or a lot more input that you can have on it. Sometimes with those larger projects, I love them, but if you're not, if your voice isn't as important on that set, it's, here, come say your lines, do your job and get out.
hmm.
But when you're hired to do something that's for an indie, I just think that there's a lot more creative freedom sometimes that you have, and you can bring a lot more to the table with your experience, rather than feeling like you just got hired for the job. But on the flip side, there are some major ones that I've been on where they're all input, all love. Like, can if you think of anything, let us know. So
Right. Absolutely. And so obviously you got the it's Bruno role. Talk about that role and then maybe what's next for you.
that was it's Bruno was an amazing world. That was a great experience. I got to fly to New York. I think I had been there one time previously, and but that one was more filmed as I took the job as a local, so I
Mm,
literally lived there for almost, I think, about 3 weeks, and it was just amazing to get a walk around and experience it on my own. I wasn't taken care of in any special way except for when we were on set filming. But Slick Naim, he's just an amazing director, amazing writer, amazing actor. And I was just blessed to be a part of that cast. Shakira Barrera. So there were amazing people that, when you're filming something, you really don't know sometimes what it's on. You get the story, you get your part, it's great. But then when you really see the vision that the director had, it was amazing. And Seamus Tierney, actually, that was a great, the connections you make. He was the director of photography on It's Bruno, and so when I show up to home team, there's Seamus right there,
oh, cool.
DP. And so, I mean, you make these connections where I got a big old, hey, Anthony. And, it felt great. You see these familiar faces, and yeah. And, it's back to the auditions. I always say you're only as good as your last sale. You're like a car salesman.
Hmm.
I would love to get to the point where they're just throwing offers at you. And, I'm not complaining because I'm still getting some great auditions. I keep them under wraps until you get the job. But just knowing
Hmm.
that you're invited for those caliber of performances and those characters is something in itself. I have heard some actors, just for their passion of it, they have patted themselves on the back and for a couple auditions a year. And so that lets me know how blessed I am
Mm-hmm.
to be doing what I love, and steady rising. And every year I've leveled up and been given more. So it's a good feeling.
Yeah, I'm sure kind of looking back of, when you felt like, having a, family initially needed to find a work. I mean, just to where you're at now. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you. It was a complete restructure of who I
Yeah.
was. My attitude. Just everything about me had to
Hmm.
change, especially when you're raising kids and they're watching everything that you do. But
Yeah.
it was a transformation. At the time when I took the first started the acting lessons, it was a rebirth of me because there were emotions that I had cut off that I reconnected to. It was okay to smile and laugh and be vulnerable.
Hmm.
I grew the hair out. I was like, I put the 40 ounces down and I said, it's time to get in shape. And so it was internally and externally a complete transformation, and I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for that. And my thing is just to tell people, grab a hold of that before you have to make such drastic changes. If you have a passion, go for it. It does sound cliche and corny, but everything is possible through hard work. God's blessed me so much that I just want to be a blessing. I want to tell my story, and I love the work that I do. I have a passion for it, and you can do it. You can accomplish your goals and your dreams. And I'm very much aware that thousands of people pour into New York and Hollywood every single day, going to be the next big thing. So even if I had to stop today, I at least don't have that what if regret. I know that I took on Hollywood, and in my own special way, I've already won.
That's awesome. I love that story. Love, just hearing about this. I did have one last question I wanted to ask you as
Sure.
well. Being out in California and LA area, um, are you a Dodgers fan or are you a Rams fan as well, or what teams do you follow?
When I grew up, I had it was the Raiders.
Okay. Yeah.
The Rams were always great, but I just love a good team and a good game. As far as baseball goes, yeah, I love the Dodgers. I love the Angels as well.
Hmm.
I am not such a fanatic that I will get into it with people over. I always remember the scene in Bronx Tale where the gangster's talking to the kid and he's like, "You go tell Mickey Mantle you can't pay the rent." You see what he says. So
Love it.
I
Yes.
cheer them on. My son. He's another perfect example. He came up through high school, and towards the end of his high school career, we didn't know where he was going to go. I was still in the struggle, college, we would do what we had to do, but I wasn't
Hmm.
looking like I could just bankroll it. But the kid literally earned himself a 5-year full ride scholarship to Fresno State. They won a
Wow.
bowl game, division championship. He's got 2 rings. And, that was another. We both started that journey when I started acting. And I was like, I'm going to show you you can accomplish whatever as long as you work hard and, don't take no for an answer, have confidence and pride, put the ego aside. And so it's just that's been the recurring theme in my life is
Hmm.
that, no matter what the obstacle you can overcome. I don't live in fear. I go head on. And I'm just so proud to be doing what I'm doing, and yeah, I love all the teams. Go Rams. Um, I think that it's amazing that we have a team in the Super Bowl this year, so I'll be
Hmm.
watching that game. But I think even overall, I just like seeing great
Hmm.
competitive sportsmanship and
Hmm.
a good game, no matter what the sport is.
I agree. Yeah. And so, like, I don't know, is it been a little bit more crazy out there because of Super Bowl, or is it just always crazy out, in LA?
I think LA is going to celebrate whether they have a dog in the race or not.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think they're preparing for it down here.
Yeah.
It's probably going to get a little bit crazy. And then you got guys like Dr. Dre and Snoop and Eminem performing during the Super Bowl halftime. So I mean, it
Hmm.
makes it even crazier. People who normally aren't sports fans definitely come out. We have people coming, flying in from all over just to partake in the action, and so it's going to be a fun time. I just pray everyone stays safe and
Hmm.
nothing crazy happens because that doesn't do anyone any good. But it should be a great game.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fun. I definitely appreciate you taking your time. Now, where can everyone find you again?
You can find me on Instagram. It's at Actor Anthony, all lowercase. You can also find me on Twitter at Actor Anthony. And then you can find me on Facebook, Anthony L. Fernandez.
Perfect. Yeah. Definitely, gonna check out some of those other shows that you're on. I loved Home Team. Great movie. It's definitely one that you can watch with the kids and just a great movie all around.
Yeah, I was really proud of that one, because that is I joke with some friends. I said this time I didn't have to play the gangster. I didn't get killed. And I'm also proud because as a father, to
Hmm.
be able to share a family movie that we can all sit down and watch, that was really special to me. Especially, even some of the great experiences and shows that I've been on. Some of my kids, they're looking at me like, "Well, that's that is," and they really don't. But it's
Right.
nice for a change for them to see, oh, Taylor Lautner, Kevin. They've watched them before and they know them, and that's just
Hmm.
fun for me to be able to share that with them. And it brings back great memories of a great experience. The sets, that I walked day after day. The
Hmm.
Home Team really is. They captured something really special. You don't know until you see the final edit. It is a happy Madison, but it is special in its own way. And based on the true story, it was an amazing true story, and it really is heartfelt and inspiring.
Yeah, especially when you have kids. I mean, I have kids as well, and just to see that father son moment because as a dad, and I'm sure maybe even sometimes as an actor, like if you have to be away, it is hard. Maybe not always getting to share. some things with the kids, and
Mhm.
just to see kind of that moment, in the movie is at the end is amazing as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's every time I'm gone, even if it's for a few weeks or something, you come back home and you realize that it's not even a drastic change, but it's subtle changes, and you realize how much you really do miss over a time that you think is just short.
Hmm.
And what I really love most about that story with Sean Payton and Connor is the fact that it shows you that no matter how estranged, no matter how much the time has passed, there's still time,
Hmm.
to make those reconnections, and that's what life is all about.
Hmm.
Never take anything for granted, and never leave any relationship broken. Always reach out, and you can always, I mean, beautiful things just come from reconnection and reestablishing love for each other, and that's what I think really makes the world go around.
Absolutely, and it's a universal message.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. I definitely appreciate your time, and we'll definitely connect people to this on Twitter, and definitely gonna connect people to all of your work. So appreciate it.
Hey, it was a pleasure to be here, man. I just hope everyone enjoys the movie. If they haven't seen it, go watch Home Team on Netflix. And again, thanks for having me. I can't wait to be back, and hope you have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Anthony.
All right.